This is Main Street with Gary Allen. Now, here's Gary.
And hello, everybody. Gary Allen with you here on Main Street. We certainly are grateful for you for joining us here, as you do every week. And yes, we are back on the air after being absent for about a year, I guess. We had to go through some crazy stuff. We got a great show for you today. We have the Elks Club, as you can see behind me, the benevolent and protective order of the Elks. We're going to be talking about Veterans Affairs and how the Elks reach out into their community and help the veterans in their communities, not only here in South Florida, but throughout the country. And we're going to give out some phone numbers and places you can call and things along those lines. If you know a veteran or a veteran's family that needs some help, well, we are here to help you, and we'll try to point you in the right direction. But before I get to that, I just want to thank a couple of people, the Japanese Garden of Miami and the Elks Lodges of South Florida, for their continued support of this particular program. This afternoon, we have a couple of guests with us this afternoon, and I'm going to do this by priority of my respect for them. One of them happens to be like a brother to me, so if I mention him second, it's kind of okay. But Captain Frank Jaca, Army veteran of the Vietnam War, something I know a little bit about. We're going to talk about Veterans Affairs and how he reaches out into the community with welcome home kits and how he deals with the VA in correlation with the Elks organization. And of course, I think he was a former president of 1676, Mr. Rick Del Vecchio, as well as executive producer of this program. So gentlemen, would you please step on up?
There we go.
There we go.
It's all working.
There we go. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Before we get into this, Fred, explain your liaison between the Elks and the Dade County, correct?
That's correct. I'm the visitor specialist there at the John Carter VA hospital in Miami. We deal with not only the hospital itself, but the homeless shelter and also the PTS center that's in Doral. And we secure funds by donations. We secure items of need, such as toiletries, anything that these guys could use. Tents, believe it or not, tents are a big item that they ask for at these different shelters. And then just trying to be letting these guys know that, they're not forgotten. And that's the sad thing, is that after all their services, it's very difficult to see a guy at a bridge or at a bus stop with a grocery cart with all his stuff and, not being able to say to him or help him out in certain ways. And we give out gift cards in that respect to McDonald's or Burger King, whatever I can get, and make sure that they're aware that they can seek help at the VA center and at the homeless shelter. And if they got issues, they can also go to the PTS center, which is in big demand.
Right. Where can people go to the Elks Lodge at 1676, Rick, and drop off donations for veterans?
Definitely, yes, they can. And there's also another lodge, Miami Lodge 948. They would also accept donations. So, like Fred says, gift cards to a fast food like McDonald's, Burger King, Kentucky Fried Chicken, or
Arby's, places like that.
There's a lot of places where they could spend it. Even a card to Publix or Winn-Dixie supermarkets would help.
Yeah.
For sure. And then, of course, any clothing items, new clothes, though, if you can, whether it be underwear, undershirts, socks, and all gifts are really appreciated.
And ladies and gentlemen, just to give you an idea, this is a decree, not a decree, but this is a creed by the Elks. So long as there are veterans, the benevolent and protective order of the Elks will never forget them. Never forget them. It's too bad certain people in Washington, D.C. don't get that message. I'm being political for a second, gentlemen. But, what you guys do, I know firsthand what you do and how you do it. So it's great. By the way, Rick, I don't know if you're aware of this or not. Fred and I shared this before the program. He and his wife just celebrated 55 years
I
of
know.
wedding bliss. And
I-
Fred, you got to tell the story. You got to tell the story of how you met your wife, got married. Well, you went off. Well, tell the story, and it's a good story.
Well, both of us went to a Catholic great high school here in Miami. She went to an all-girls Catholic. I went to an all-boys. I was dating her best friend, and it's a good thing we never got more serious because we would have been divorced. And my present wife was helping me get back with her. And to be honest with you, things started, for about almost 6 months to a year. We just got closer and closer and closer. And she was going into the convent to become a nun. And I was going to West Point to pursue my military career. And I didn't know if my math grades would have been good enough for all 4 years at West Point. And then, you have to make that commitment after your second year that you're going to stay, so that you have a commitment of 5 years after the service. So we started dating, and sure enough, I asked her to marry me, and I resigned my appointment to the academy, and I was sent to Vietnam. My initial unit was November Rangers of 173rd Airborne Brigade, and my second tour was with the 5th and 20th Special Forces Group. And it was interesting. We've been married 55 years, only spent 14 days in those first 2 years. So
Wow.
I guess something worked because it's lasted this long.
Yeah, absolutely. And military, Rick, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but military marriages are very difficult,
Yes.
very difficult to maintain, because one or the other, and now with a lot of women in the military, which there's more and more and more, they're off. They're off, doing what they do. They serve their country, and they leave the family behind, and it's left up to the wives or the husband now to take care of the kids and make sure that they get off to school. And the provisions are not always the greatest. So I mean, it's a good thing what the Elks have been involved in. Rick, I want you to give a background on how the Elks became who they are and where they are going.
Sure. It was back November 15th, 1867. An actor and singer named Charles Vivian came from Southampton, England, and he was looking for other entertainers in New York City, and they found a few, and they met at a drinking establishment. I believe it was called, I can tell you right here, well, it doesn't matter. It was a bar in the theater district on Broadway. But they realized on Sundays, they had blue laws back then where no liquor could be served, a public service. So they started their own little club where they could just hang out and drink. And they got to about 15 members, and it was mostly actors and singers and whatnot. But then a little while later, about 8 or 9 months later, one of their friends passed away, and they attended his funeral, realized that his wife was short of funds. So they kind of chipped in and paid for the funeral and helped out. And they decided, listen, let's start a fraternal organization and start raising funds to do some charitable work. And basically, on February 16th, 1868, they voted 8-7 to adopt the name Benevolent Protective Order of Elks. The other name that was up there was the Royal Order of Buffaloes, which actually is an English club. But again, these actors decided that they want to start their own, not carry over the Buffaloes, so they called it the Elks. And the Elks, they picked Elks because an elk is fleet of foot, timorous of wrong, but ever ready to combat in self-defense of their family or the female species. So that's how they started off. And that's this February, it'll be 156 years. Since then, we've donated on a national level over $3.5 billion to charitable causes. A lot of that going to veteran services, academic scholarships, and several other youth camps and whatnot. Each state has their own association, and in Florida, the Florida State Elks, one of their big, I guess not events, but their big thing is the camp. They have a camp in Umatilla where they send children, whether they could afford it or not, to camp for 1 week from the age of 9 to 13, Fred?
Yes.
Yeah. And if they can't afford it, they go free of charge. 405 acres. Fred's been there. I have not. It's a phenomenal camp, though. You can go online and check it out. It's rated one of the best camps in the country, summer camps. And then during the 8 weeks in summer, they have it open for children. The last week is reserved for military, active military and their families. They go free of charge. The rest of the year, they rent it out to corporations for retreats and whatnot. So it's a heck of a facility.
Yeah.
And it's great. It gives the kids a week of, out of their life of playing on the phones. They're not allowed to bring cell phones, right, Fred?
Yeah, no, that's.
And when they put them there, from what I understand, they don't want to go home. When they get there, they're nervous, but such a great thing. There's so much for them to do. They've got a huge Olympic-sized swimming pool. They've got lakes where they can go canoeing, archery. They've got rock climbing, zip lines. It's just phenomenal. I wish I was a kid and could go to it. Although we are allowed to go. We are allowed to go. I guess once a year or twice a year they open up for the Elks to go there and check it out. But it's a phenomenal camp. But in addition to that, like I said, the history of the Elks, 156 years, come this February. Yeah. And we have a lot of charitable events we'll get into in a minute. But for folks who are thinking of joining the Elks, one is a great way to get back to the community because we do have so much charitable events we do for the veterans, for children's, and so on. But also, each lodge has their own club, the club, which is a lounge, and that's open to all members. And our lounge is really great. Every Tuesday we have Jeff's Jazz. So if you like jazz, you come on out, and it's free. There's no cover charge ever. Every Thursday night we have open mic night. So if you're a musician, you can come out and play an instrument. Every Friday we have something different. Every Friday, the first Friday, we have Jeff sing along, and Jeff will get a couple of musicians that show up, and anybody in the lounge that had a few drinks and thinks they can sing can get up and scare the rest of us. That's a way to do it. And
but then, where Rick, before you go any further, where is 1676, and where can they find you? I mean, on a website.
Yeah, it's 6304 Southwest 84th Street. And that's in South Miami. The zip code is 33143. And our email address is elk1676.com, which is pretty easy to remember. elk1676.com. It's up there on the screen. And they could get a roster of everything that goes on. We have a calendar there that tells you everything I'm telling you. And on the Fridays, the first Friday, as I said, we have Jeff Sing-Along. The second, we have the Jazz Tet. It's four fellas, Jeff Monk and his guys that play jazz. The third, which is this Friday, big band, Ronnie Berman's big band, and they usually have 2 to 3 vocalists. You've met Alex Teixeira, who does the voice intro, is a phenomenal singer, vocalist, and he performs every Friday on that third Friday. So come on out. You don't have to be a member. If you come in as our guest, you can take a look at the organization. We have the Florida Lounge where we have the bands, but we also have a ballroom that we rent out. It holds up to 240 folks. We've got a theater in there, a stage, a full stage, and we have other meeting space that we rent out. That's how we pay our bills. So if you have a wedding or something like that, you need a place to have it, you can come to our lodge. And again, the best way is to go to Elk 1676. And you can send us an email, and then we can invite you to come on out to these events. And then the fourth Friday, we have DJ Elvis. This man is phenomenal. He has a theme every month. And last month, it was a Western theme. Everybody got dressed up in Western wear. I made about, 2 or 3 gallons of chili con carne, and we had a great time. So we have a lot of fun events. We also have karaoke the second and fourth Friday of the month. And again, for those that want to come out and sing, you're welcome to do so. So we do have a lot of fun events for our members. But again, Fred and I, we want to talk more about the charitable work we do, for veterans, for school students, and also for children who need physical and occupational therapy. We've got 28 vans that travel throughout the state of Florida, providing, I think we take care of 500, almost 520 kids per week that receive physical and occupational therapy free of charge in their homes if they need it, at no charge, by the way. So,
just as a point of reference, if people aren't familiar, on US 1, right by South Miami Hospital, we're directly behind the Taco Bell
right.
on US 1, so that makes it easier to find it. You can see that building. But the funny thing that I wanted to emphasize with Rick is these things are done specifically for the veterans, for the kids, and we definitely make sure that they're attended to and give them suggestions and help in any way possible. And it doesn't, they don't get charged for any of this stuff. And the important thing is that there's a lot of people right now that they're in dire straits, and they really need some of these organizations to take care of it. And I don't want to say nothing negative about the VFWs, the Moose. They do the same things. But I can honestly tell you, I think that the Elks do a heck of a lot more than some of these other units. But by all means, take advantage of any of these other organizations that help, so that we can spread it out and get as many people with information and help that's possible.
Right. Yeah, I think Gary's having a little audio problem there with his microphone. I don't know if he can hear us or not. He's trying to connect with Tommy, our producer. But we'll just go on from there, Fred, you and I.
Yeah.
First of all, to everybody out there, if you are a veteran, if you have any kind of a crisis, there is a veterans hotline. It's 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-8255. You can call that 24 hours a day. You press number 1 and you can talk to a crisis specialist. You could also chat with them at veteranscrisisline.net, or you could text to 838-255. So that's a veterans, and that's through the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. What the Elks do, we have several programs to help the veterans. One thing Fred and I do is we write a grant, several grants. One is a focus grant specific for homeless veterans.
Yeah, okay.
And we got Gary back, I hear. That's good. Yeah, Gary, I'm just telling everybody about the focus grant to help homeless veterans.
Yeah. Okay, I'm back.
Yeah, I saw you had a little problem there. We're talking about the focus grant. That's a $10,000 grant we get from the Elks National Foundation. And just so you know, to be an Elk, you have to be an American citizen and believe in God. And that's pretty much it. And then you get some people to vouch for you. We do a little bit of a background check.
Right.
And then we vote on you. But once you're a member, that's in all 50 states, United States. And each lodge, even though you may be a member, like we're a member of the South Miami Coral Gables Elks Lodge, with our membership card, we can get into any Elks Lodge in the United States. And we have almost 1 million members and something like 2,200 lodges nationwide.
I want to go back to one thing, Rick. And by the way, I apologize. My cat Princess went through here and she not disconnected, but she put her paw on the wrong button. and then I didn't realize it. Now, on the karaoke night where you can go up and sing, you're not going to sing, right? You're not.
I've actually told I'm pretty good, Gary. I mean, believe it or not. And I did.
Yeah.
And the way that started, they've done karaoke for like 10 years there. Yeah. And I used to go, but I never got up and sang. After COVID-19, one of the first events to open up was karaoke. And we did it not in the lounge because it's too close together. We did it in the ballroom and spaced out small tables of 4. Yeah. And Brian Kinsley, who ran the karaoke back then, one day after about an hour or two into it, I had about 7 Jim Beam and Coke. And Kinsley says, Del Vecchio, you come here all the time. You don't sing. Get up and sing something. I said, all right, Amore by Dean Martin. And they did pretty good. They applauded. And of course, when I got off the stage, Brian says, damn, Del Vecchio, that's pretty good. For a minute, I thought we were going to have to take away your gimme card. I know today in this woke community, people be offended like that, but we joked about that kind of joke.
No. I know you guys are talking about helping the veterans and everything. And I just wanted to run this by you because, Rick, you gave this to me just before the program. And Fred, to you and I, and to Tommy, who we found out before the beginning of the show, Rick is a veteran also of Desert Storm.
No, not me. Not Rick. Rick who?
No, Tom.
Tom is. Okay. I thought you said Rick. No.
No. I said, Rick, you'll find this interesting too.
Gotcha.
There are 37,000 homeless veterans right now.
Right. Yeah.
1.4 million vets are at risk of being homeless in the not too distant future.
Yep.
And most of these men, and Fred, you can speak to this better than anybody. Most of the trouble that they're involved there's the Veterans Crisis Line. Ladies and gentlemen, if you know somebody, a veteran, or their families that are in trouble, they need help, but they don't know where to go, and you know that they're in trouble, call this number. They will help you.
There is a mistake on the number. It's 8255. I don't know what. Maybe I got the pamphlet right here. Yeah, it's 273-8255. Extension
8255.
8255, not 473.
Okay. All right. Tommy will correct that and we'll get it back up there.
Yeah.
If you know of someone who needs help, and can they go to the Elks Lodge? Can they call one of the local lodges, whether it be in South Florida or somewhere else? Can they call and ask for some help, knowing that you folks, along with other organizations, do help veterans? Can they call and someone will turn you on, Fred, to who it may be that you can go and see them?
Yeah, we try to make sure that they're got the information that they need. You know, the funny thing about it, when you mention about the families, when these veterans come in there, a lot of them are, you know, apprehensive. They say they're okay. They don't have an issue. Talk to the family member, and I guarantee you, they'll tell you there is an issue. And it's something that needs to be taken care of by volunteering to go to the VA hospital, the homeless shelter. They got people there that'll help you, and there's no embarrassment in that. You served your country, you came back, and a lot of us had a support system when we got back that would enable us to carry out and do a normal life. But a lot of these guys that you see at these places didn't have that support system.
No.
So they rely on drugs or whatever the case may be to get by. And it's very, very important that you generate people to let them know that these things are available for them.
Here's something interesting. Go ahead, Rick.
Go ahead, Rick. I made a huge mistake. Tommy had it right. He was showing the Elks Veterans Hotline. And that number was correct, Tommy. I apologize. I was looking at the Department of Veterans Affairs Crisis Hotline, which is different, totally different. So the elks.org, you had that right, Tommy.
Tommy never is wrong. He's never wrong. Yeah. You know, Fred and Rick, here's something interesting. I was discussing this with my brother and Mr. Del Vecchio, my brother in arms. And you know, Rick, my brother down there in Kendall, he and I were talking about this, about veterans, and he was asking me a whole lot of questions. And we were talking about veterans with drug addiction or alcohol issues or whatever the case may be. And he said, you know, Gary, my son, your nephew, works in a law firm, Gray and Robinson, in Miami. And he said, how many alcoholics are lawyers and judges and doctors and airline pilots? My dad was an airline pilot, and his old generation World War II guys were alcoholics. And who were never in combat. Forget the airline pilots, many of them were. But Fred, these people were never in combat, and they're all screwed up and they're on drugs or alcohol. Yeah. Does anyone, I mean, Rick, God bless you. I've talked about this with you many times. No one has a clue what it's like to carry a gun or fly a plane in combat and come home and try to be normal, whatever that is. And our society looks down. And you know, Fred, we were looked down on when we came through Oakland. We weren't loved.
No, that happened to me in San Francisco. You know, the funny thing about it is that, you know, the people that die there, their worries are over. The ones that are coming back have to deal with things that they thought they can just get rid of or push it in the back of their minds, and they can't. There is no unwounded person in a war. The lucky ones are the ones that passed away. The others have to carry that on for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And it's really a sad situation when they can't get the support, they can't get the help and therapy to deal with it. And the
Yeah.
funny thing about it is that a lot of these guys, myself, I suffer from PTSD, and mine is a survival guilt. There's a lot of guys that have that same symptom. And by doing these things, you can definitely help by going to the VA center and the PTS center in Miami.
Yeah.
And that's across the country. They have them.
Yep.
And it's something that they need to be aware of, and the families need to be able to talk them into it and give them guidance. And you're not asking for anything. There's two things that guy on the street and a wheelchair or with a basket that I and him have in common. Both of us suffering from PTSD, but more importantly, we're both veterans, and that's the key that we need
Yeah.
to make sure that it's stressed on.
Yep. And you know, it's funny. I had someone who was a non-veteran, never served in the military, question my patriotism to the United States of America because I didn't vote for somebody. I'm not going to get into that, but because I didn't vote for somebody, I was questioned. And a friend of mine who happened to be with me who knew that I served in the Air Force. Really, Rick, I want to tell you something. I couldn't have, but my friend could have ended up in jail that night for taking this guy's head off. I mean, it was 10 years ago. It was long. I was living in Las Vegas, where you used to come and visit me.
Yeah.
But it's a tough road to haul. And Fred will tell you, any vet will tell you. And if they tell you, I came home, took my uniform off, put my civvies on, and I went about my life, he's lying through his teeth.
Yeah.
Right, Fred?
That's correct. You know, the funny thing about it, when I walk the streets, I wear my unit hat, and some people come up to me and say, thank you for your service. And I appreciate it. I tell them, thank you for your support. But I still remember what it was like to be treated in the 60s. And a lot of guys, I'm sure you got numerous on the show listening that can relate to that. And it's not a fun feeling. And I definitely think me and my brothers and sisters that served in Vietnam do not want to see what happened to us to any future generation of kids. And that's going to happen. Every generation is going to have to pay the price. And that is one thing that we need to make sure that their service is appreciative and be thankful for what they did.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I even got it from my family, Rick. I even got it from members of I have one sister today. I haven't talked to her in 40 years. I have no intentions of talking to her. But I want to talk about some of the programs. Now, we talked about the welcome home kits and things that when people reach out to you, and when you meet somebody initially, Fred or Rick or someone from the Elks, what is the process in order to take them from step A, B, C, and D to get them the help they need?
We try to give them information. I carry little brochures and everything from the VA hospital and the VA department to give them the information of where they can go to, and really encourage them to do that. And not only them, but also their family members, because they're the ones that are going to tell you the truth. Most of your veterans are going to tell you and shrub it off and say, yeah, I'm okay. I don't need that. Believe me, they do need it. And it's something that we need to make sure that they're fully aware of. Rick's going to talk about some of the programs. We got the Army of Hope. Well, they collect money from the different lodges and put it into a fund. And when one of them, active duty veteran, whatever the case may be, needs something, pay electric bill or behind on their mortgage, or they need assistance, especially for the ones that are on active duty. You know, their families are at home. You're not getting paid in the service like you did on your regular job when you're home. So they definitely need that kind of help. And I can tell you right now, over the years, I get an application, I have them fill it out, and I send it forward. And 9 times out of 10, it gets appropriated so that they can get that. I had one lady that had $1,000 electric bill, and she couldn't pay it. And we were able to get that money to her so that was taken care of. Her husband was deployed in Afghanistan and Iraq. So those are the kind of things that we do. And that's just one of them. I mean, there's numerous. And Rick will tell you about the other programs.
Other programs.
Yeah.
All right, Rick.
The grants, which is that we get, and we don't have to pay it back. It's there for a purpose. So long as we do what we say we're going to do, it's available year in and year out for continuously.
Yeah, the Focus grant is specifically for homeless veterans, and it's $10,000. We just finished this grant a few weeks ago, as a matter of fact. It was three phases. We actually teamed up with a Freedom Grant for $1,000, and what we did is the Freedom Grant. We helped 25 veterans. We gave them backpacks. Now these were folks living on the street. They got tents. Each one got a tent. They've got socks, mosquito repellent, unscented baby wipes so they can clean themselves, because a lot of times they can't make it to a shelter where they can get a shower. So that socks, pairs of socks, brand new socks, cards for food, they were all put into a knapsack or a backpack that we purchased for them so they can use it for whatever else they need to carry, and plus protein bars, dried fruit packs, and that went to the 25 folks that were homeless. Then we sent 75 more backpacks under the Focus grant, again with tents to people on the streets. Because Fred will tell you, he goes downtown and there's a Sisters of Mercy, and a couple blocks away, it's hundreds of people living in tents on the outdoors. So we took care of them, and then we finished up with another 100 backpacks. And these folks are living in shelters, because there are shelters, but there's only so many beds. And they got a backpack with some different things, toiletries and stuff that they can use while they're in there. But they didn't get the tent because they do have the temporary housing. Mm-hmm. So that's what the Focus grant does. Now, for veterans, you mentioned the Welcome Home Kit. For veterans that do find stable housing, an apartment complex that they get into, we get up to $500, and we go shopping with them to buy whatever they need to fill up that apartment. It could be knives, forks, plates, food for the cupboards, a bed. So that's basically what that is. Welcome home, and they have $500 to go out and buy any kind of household items they need: a toaster oven, an air fryer, whatever, microwave. So that's the Welcome Home Kit. And then now that we used up the $10,000 Focus grant, we just got the check this week, or just last week. It's called a Beacon Spotlight Grant, and that's a total of $6,000. So again, we'll go back and we have $6,000 more, because let's face it, it's like, I remember the singer Harry Chapin back in the 70s. They used to have fundraisers when you're a kid at school, bring in a canned goods at Christmas time.
Yeah.
Because he remembered he gave his daughter a can at Christmas time. And when she came home, she goes, "Daddy, this is really good, but what are these people going to eat next week?" The homeless, are hungry every day of the year. So, our lodge does as much as we can, and we write the Focus grant, the Beacon grant. We try to help out that way. And then on top of that, the donations you talked about, people dropping donations off at our lodge.
Yeah.
Fred, and I'll tell you, I've told Fred this already, but I nominated Fred for the Florida State Vet Volunteer of the Year. That's a picture of us delivering the bags. The fellow on the far left is Murney Williams. He's the director of the volunteer services for the VA. Then you got Miss Denise Ramirez. She's VA Healthcare and Outreach for Homeless Veterans. That's Captain Fred, myself, and then the fellow on the end. He's a volunteer. His name is Willie Johnson, and he's a voluntary assistant. And that's where we took those knapsacks filled with that. That was us filling the knapsacks. We got about 10 or 12 volunteers to help fill it up with all the goods. And that's Fred's truck loaded in the back. And we had 2 or 3 pickups. There's a truck in front. You can see that loaded with these backpacks. And, it's a good thing that we do it. And like I said, Fred, we do this 2 or 3 times a year with the big grants. But Fred every week is out in the streets bringing gift cards to the veterans out on the streets, and going to the VA hospitals and meeting people. So Fred's put in a lot more effort than me, and he deserves the credit for that. And I put him in for Veteran Volunteer of the Year Award for 2024, and they pick out a couple of winners each state, and then the winners from the state go to the nationals. And I hope Fred makes it up to the nationals.
I can't see why he wouldn't. I mean, Fred is a veteran,
Yeah,
served in Vietnam, 2 tours of duty,
yeah.
and you know where
And
you were. I know, and I know you got to see the worst of it. Sometimes I was in Pleiku, so I got to see some happy times myself, Fred. Uh, but do all the lodges throughout the country participate in all the programs, or are there various programs that you guys do that maybe Oregon doesn't do or Maryland
oh,
doesn't do? They have something else.
yeah,
This is a national program. Every lodge has a veterans committee, and that committee is the one that helps collect things and bring them to, uh, you know, in the state of Florida, we have 16 districts, and each district has one, and then it's coordinated. Here in that South Florida, we got our lodge, which is 1676 in South Miami, and the Miami Lodge in 948. We kind of work together. They also got those grants
right. Oh, yeah.
Rick mentioned, and
Yeah.
between those two lodges, and just in the last few months, we've had like $60,000 worth of grant monies to
Right.
be spent on items that's a desperate need for some of these guys and women. And
Right.
the funny thing about it, in years past, the women, I hate to say it, I don't want to say we neglected them, but we, especially at the VA hospital, because that's where the women meet, to get assistance. They don't, or some of these outreach programs. This last couple of years, Rick is, and the lodge has specifically targeted the women. And today's women, we got women that are in combat arms,
Yeah.
that in years past was not the case. So it
Right.
was very nice to be able to do. We sent them on a Kmart, or I should say a Target store, each
Right.
with $150 to $200 card, so they can spend it on what they need for their kids.
Yeah.
And it was grateful to see that, because in the past, I don't want to say it was neglected, but it wasn't. It was mainly concentrated to the men.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there are quite a few women that in that homeless shelter there at the VA hospital.
Yeah.
It's funny, Fred, when you bring that up. The WASPs and the
Yeah,
women who were in the military during the Second World War. When the war ended, guess what, Rick? There were no benefits for them.
no,
Yeah.
no,
The Congress didn't recognize them. They didn't honor them. They didn't bother to do any benefits for them, education wise or anything else. And they were ferrying airplanes over to Europe, sometimes getting killed, shot
yeah,
down,
Sure.
so the men could be in the combat zones. I mean, I- it's my head wants to explode when I think about the people we leave behind. It's not like you go to a divorce court and you get divorced, and no, you go your way, you go away mine. No, it's not like that. It's
no.
it's more complicated than all that, and
Sure.
it's horrible. I mean, I once said on this program to you, Rick, and to Fred, I never talk about
Sure.
I never. I mean, I think I brought it up to you once, Rick,
Yeah.
and I brought it up to my brother once. I never talk about it really. I say I was in, but that's about all I do. And the ones that we call upon, that we need to preserve the freedoms of this country and other countries, not just us, our
Sure.
friends, are neglected, left behind, forgotten about. Oh, you're over there. Oh, he's a drug addict. Which brings up my next point. I know that there's a drug program for children. What do you do, Fred and Rick, for veterans that are strung out on one thing or another? Is there a place that you can send them? Is there a place you can help them go to help them get, back to a normalcy of life?
Well, at the homeless shelter, and as well as the PTS center, they have psychologists there that are there to help these guys to deal with it. The funny thing about it is, like I mentioned before, a lot of these guys will kind of say, "I'm okay. I don't need this kind of help," and believe me, they do need this help. You
Right.
know, when you, I don't know how many millions of people we have in this country, but out of whatever that 100% number is, 1% are the guys and women that have to do the dirty work,
Yeah.
being on active duty and this and that, and that's a tremendous thing. You got, in this country as well as every country in the world over the years, had ordinary people do the extraordinary. And the guys that are serving and the women that are serving are doing the extraordinary. And they need to be appreciated, and they need to be given the assistance they need when they get back from active duty. You know what it's like for a 17, 18, 19-year-old to fill out his last will and testament before he gets deployed? You know, remember how you were when you were 17 and 18. Do you think you could have coped with that real well?
Yeah.
No.
It's a shame. It's a shame. This country asks you to do something, and when you get back, there's no support. They try, but no support. Now, some of these guys don't want it. Don't get me
No.
wrong. They don't
No,
want it.
some
They want
some
to
of
be
them are
left.
very proud, and they got that macho image. And here's another thing too, guys, that somebody reminded me of this not long ago. Right after World War II in Korea, everything was fine with the VA. They were able to handle the numbers quite well. I mean, some people fell through the cracks, but the Vietnam War proliferated the amount of men that needed help after the war and during the war and before it finally came to its final conclusion. And that
Remember,
really put a strain on the system.
remember during World War II, they called it shell shock.
Yeah.
Vietnam, PTSD and everything else. But the Elks Association were the forerunners of the VA. They're the ones that started that after World War I.
Right.
And the funny thing about it is they continue to do it. And every lodge in the country tries to support this. And don't get me wrong, like I mentioned before, there's a number of others, the VFW, the Moose, and all, they have their programs too.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it'd be nice to, make sure that all those programs are recognized by people, because there is ability to get help. Sometimes you got to ask for it. Sometimes you got to tell people, or I don't want to say force them, but highly recommend that they go get it. Hey, you served, you did what you had to do, you came back home, and it's our duty as Americans to make sure that those people are taken care of.
For sure.
Are there any crossovers between the Elks and the Moose and other organizations helping the veterans and putting on events to help veterans and their families?
Well, we pass out information to the different, like the Moose in Kendall and all those other units down in the Keys. We try to give them information of anything that we're doing, and if they want to piggyback on it, they're more than welcome. The more the merrier. There's a lot of vets out there that need the help, and a lot of people are in a desperate need. And anything that we can do, whether it's us or in conjunction with any other organization, that's just more power to get that help to them.
Right. And as this program moves forward, and once a month, we're going to have a program on Main Street about the Elks and what you're doing for the vets. And we're going to try to get some of the other lodges on, especially the one in the Keys. We had them on, I think, Rick, about a year or so ago, and they had some fabulous programs going on down there, helping the vets cope with getting back into society. That would be wonderful to have them back on. And of course, with Captain Fred here, I want to talk. Go ahead.
To give you an example, the Keys Lodge had Vets on the Water program. They brought in vets. They took them out either sailing, spearfishing, fishing, whatever the case may be, and even handicapped veterans. They took them out there. So that's just one of them, and they still continue to do that.
Yeah.
With other stuff in coordination with us and 948, the other lodge in Miami, and we try to reciprocate and help each other out in any way possible to get the information out for people.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to each and every show. I guess you guys voted on me, didn't you, Rick? Or no?
Oh, well,
to be a member?
Yeah, we got to get you in there. Yeah, and we could do it via computer. I found out. Yeah, you don't have to sit down and be physically here. So we'll work.
Yeah, but I want Fred Jaca there, because if anybody wants to say anything against me, Fred will stick up for me.
Right. Yeah, we could get you in. We can
I mean, because
so.
I'm still hoping and praying to get home as it is anyway, So, but the bottom line is that, folks, if you know of a veteran and they need help and their families need help, and we're going to get into the education grants and stuff here in just a couple of minutes, please, Tommy will put up the numbers here in just a few minutes where you can contact different people that you need help. They're there. The information is there for you. The help is there for you. And I know some people are stubborn about it, but put your ego someplace else and get the help you need to be part of our society. There's the Veterans Crisis Line, 1-800-273-4736. please give them a call. If you know of a veteran that's in crisis or their family, please call that number. Let them know who this is, or have the veterans call, because some of these veterans that are homeless, they don't have computers, they don't have cell phones, they don't have anything. They don't know. So, we need your help as well. Rick and Fred, I want to talk about some of the education programs for the families of the veterans that don't have the money to send their kids to school or to college. I know there are some grant programs. They are limited, I think, year to year, but nevertheless, they do help a student get going.
Right. Yeah, the scholarship program, and again, anybody listening, you can go to elks.org, and then on the homepage across the top, there's the 3 tabs, or there's 5 or 6 tabs. The third tab over is programs. You click on that, and you'll see the scholarship program, and you can apply online right there for a scholarship. And we're second only to the U.S. government in scholarships, college scholarships, academic scholarships. We give millions of dollars away to students, and like I say, you fill out the form, and it's I guess like a contest. I mean, because we can only give out so many.
Yeah.
But the fellow that runs that from our lodge is Manny Perez. He couldn't be here today because he had to get actually dialysis treatment. But he'll be at a future thing. But Manny's gone out to the schools in South Miami to let them know about the process of applying for these scholarships. He also has met with the city of South Miami. He's gone to their commission meetings, and they do have information that they have on their calendar of events to let young kids and their parents know that these scholarships are available. So the student scholarships are a big part of the Elks charities, Elks National Foundation charity.
Yeah. I mean, and also too, you do job fairs for veterans too.
Yeah.
The different
Talk
lodges
about that, Fred.
that we had at the Miami Lodge. They had approximately 50 vendors there.
Right.
They had about 200 or 300 people that come through there at that job fair. But the thing is that each lodge has a charity account, and if it's requested and the need is there, such as wheelchairs, they purchase wheelchairs for kids and even adults if the need is there by these different organizations.
Right.
We had a $50,000 winner of a few years back that he used the money to go to Harvard, and he doesn't have to pay that back. And the funny thing about it is, if you're an elk itself, either your kids or your family members that need help, they have a grant specifically for them, tailored to their needs as far as elk members. And that's another thing that people need to take advantage of, that they're not aware of.
Yeah. Well, hopefully with this program getting out there and more information going out there, and I know Rick is going to contact, I think, the state. We have a state newspaper, I believe, or a periodical that comes out.
Florida State Elks magazine. In fact, they did have an article in this month's magazine that came out about our Freedom Focus grant and how we helped close to 200 veterans with.
And hopefully you're going to get a hold of them and let them know about this program so people can be more aware of it. And I know that more people are going to get involved in this. Where are the Elks going in the future with a lot of this? Is it just going to be more money coming in to help the veterans and their families, or are there so many new programs coming down? Because every time you turn around, there's brand new situations with veterans that come up that haven't been covered before.
Well, the funny thing that when you mention that is that each lodge, there's certain programs that we have to take care of. The veterans program, the physical therapist program, that the state requires. Those are our two main projects: is the physical therapy and the veterans program and the youth camp. But we try to do is every lodge, has a committee. The committee tries to raise funds. That money is sent into the state and national headquarters, and they in turn invest it. And what we apply for these grants, the money comes from that. Any money that we collect that goes to the state, it goes into a special fund, the Haryana Fund. They
Right.
only use the interest from that fund. They don't tax into that thing. The more
Wow.
they get, the better the interest is, and the more we get to put out to the public,
Right.
Wow.
in
And
different factions: education, veterans, charities, you name it. We have a
Hmm.
charity ball for the autism program. We have
right.
so many programs that, to be honest with you, not one lodge can sponsor every one of them. You have to pick and choose what you feel you can do and give 100% or 125% to help that particular program. And if a member comes up with something that's viable and doesn't mind running the program, they can put something together, and we can do a fundraiser to make sure that that thing is funded. And
Well,
that's
the one thing I wanted to see, and Rick, you know this, was maybe a day at the Miami Zoo with Ron McGill,
oh
who's a friend of mine. Ron has been on this program. I'd
Right.
love Fred to have that not only for the adults but for
Sure.
the children, a day at the Miami Zoo,
yeah.
Yeah.
sponsored by whomever we can get to sponsor it,
Yeah.
and do little events like that. Maybe hanging out with the Miami Heat or the Miami Dolphins. Of course, you can
Yeah.
go to the Marlins ballpark anytime and hang out with them for nothing. I mean, they,
Well,
they
we've
need all
done
the
that.
people. Yeah,
We've
they
done that.
need all the help they can get.
We have every year we have a president's visit, and we've been to the Marlins, we've been to the Everglades, we've been to a numerous places. We went to the Coast Guard station and got them on one of the boats to take
The,
them on a
the,
trip and get them accustomed to see what it's. And we've done this over the years, and every year we
yeah,
try to do something different.
yeah,
Uh, but it's basically getting people informed on what's happening. You
Right.
know, in the vet program, if you go to the PTS center, to be honest with you, if you're a veteran, and especially if you're truly a veteran, you know when someone's BSing in there. You know what I
oh
mean?
yeah,
You can tell right off the bat. They'll say this, they'll say that, and it's kind of disheartening. But what I'm getting at is that this information is readily available. If you have a computer and you want to go to, like Rick mentioned, one of the tabs up there is veterans. One of the tabs is the Army of Hope. Everything you can think of is there. It's just that some people aren't aware of it, and we need to
yeah,
make sure that that information is given out.
yeah, absolutely.
To touch on the Haryana fund that Fred mentioned, where we have our largest fundraiser. It's our charity ball, and it's coming up March 20. Let me get the calendar here before I give you the wrong date. March 23rd
Okay,
is going to be the event.
a
That's a
little over a month.
It should be solidified. March 23rd will be our
Uh-huh.
charity ball. And again, if you go to Elks 1676.com,
Hmm.
they'll see the official date and what we're going to do. We're thinking of a sock hop type routine,
Hmm.
theme rather, and we'll have appropriate food, entertainment, and then all the funds raised from that goes to the
Yeah.
Haryana Foundation. And we'll be solidifying that this Wednesday evening, I believe, when they have the board meeting.
Okay, and I will try to show up, Fred. But
Okay.
there has to be one thing at this event for me to show up, and Del Vecchio knows what it is.
Swedish meatballs.
Well, you got to remember when Rick was given the history of the Elks in
Yeah.
18 whatever it was,
18,
Rick was there. He was present.
Yes. He and Harry Houdini were both together.
Oh yeah, you'd be
Yeah.
surprised the people that have been Elks. A number
Oh,
of
yeah.
presidents, a number of actors.
Oh, yeah.
They've been
Yeah.
there.
John
Yeah.
F. Kennedy was an elk.
Yeah.
I
So
didn't know
was Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
They've got a whole list of celebrities and presidents, past presidents who were elks.
Who's the president of 1676 now?
A fellow named Ramon Matos. Now, there's some historical significance. Ramon is autistic, and he's the first elk in the state of Florida, perhaps the country, to be a president of an Elks, be autistic and be president of the Elks Lodge. Now, it's interesting you brought that up. One of the grants I just got, and this is a competitive grant, as is the focus grant is competitive too. They only give out so many per year, and we were lucky we've got it twice out of the last 3 years. This year, we got the impact grant, which was the first year we qualified for it. And once you are given that grant, as long as you fulfill the grant, you're almost a shoo-in to get it again next year because they want you to keep the same function. And what we're going to do with that grant, We're working with the University of Miami CARD program. CARD stands for Center for Autistic and Related Disabilities. And I'm working with Dr. Alessandro and Dr. DeRocha. And we will put on 4 quarterly events at our lodge. The first one is going to be February 23rd. It's a Saturday, February 20. Again, I'm looking at the wrong calendar. That's going to mess me up. February 25th. That's a Sunday. And we're going to have a barbecue for autistic folks and their families and caregivers. And it'll be hamburgers, hot dogs, chips, soft drinks, cookies, and whatnot. And then for the ones that are sports minded, we're going to have a hoop shoot and a soccer shoot. And then we're also going to have a magic show for everybody. And then for the ones that aren't sports minded, but like we'll have games, digital games, board games, puzzles, and a little contest like that. So it'll be a day of fun for these autistic folks and their families and caregivers.
Right.
We're doing that in conjunction with the University of Miami. Now, a second event we're going to do later on, either late February or March, is offer a resume writing class. And they said, because there's 9,000 autistic people registered with the CARD program in South Florida. That's Dade and Broward County and Monroe County. 9,000 folks. So a lot of them, and that's ages from 2 up to infinity, I guess. But for people who are looking to get into the work market, they'll need counseling on how to write a resume. And we will have classes put on by the CARD program at our lodge, and that'll be a separate, because there'll be maybe 15 to 30 people. If you want to keep the classes small, and that'll be an event we put on. We host at our lodge also. Right. And then what we're also going to do, because autistic people, I'm learning, by the way, some of them are very intelligent. Ramon got a genius IQ. I wouldn't want to go up against him in a sports trivia or music trivia. This guy will beat anybody. But they have social skills. They find it difficult. I asked Ramon point blank a couple of years ago I met him, what is autism? And he says they're folks that have trouble to being social with other people. Like, it would be hard for an autistic person sometimes to look you in the eye when they're talking to you. Yeah. So we came up with a plan that every month, which we're going to do the third Saturday every month at our lodge. It's TOS, Talent of the Spectrum, and this will be the CARD program. Will send the CARD organization will send out emails inviting folks. Ramon, for instance, plays the guitar and he plays an open mic. He sings. He also comes to karaoke. So anybody in the spectrum who is talented, whether it be music, singing, poetry, acting, whatever, can come this Saturday and meet not only with autistic folks, but members of our lodge and mingle and socialize. And this is a great benefit to the autistic folks to get socialize.
I want to thank both of you so much for joining me here on Main Street. The hour is up. I want to thank the former president, Rick Del Vecchio, who was also the executive producer of this program, and my hero, Mr. Fred Jaca, who, when I get to meet him, I'm going to give him the biggest hug in the world, because he's just an amazing man. And I just want to thank both of you so much. And I want to thank all of you out there for taking the moment to join us here on Main Street. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, please take care of yourselves and each other.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
This is Main